Your discovery, which I don't even call it in mine, is not for you to extract all this reasoning. People don't buy because of reason. They buy because of emotion. That's it. Everything you do is emotionally based. Now, we'll back it up with logic a little bit, yes, but it is emotionally based. We buy on emotion every single time. Good morning, everybody. For those who haven't sat in, and I've tried to put everybody I know up here. So if you're a Perla or Tanika or Deshonda or Emma who've been sitting in my trainings before, they kind of know what to expect at this point. So I can tell you a little bit about not being all in and full in and kind of just coasting through and doing this and how this industry will work for you. But I will 100% encourage you where you are right now, specifically with the leadership that's here and the way the industry is moving. You have got to grab this thing by the horns and go hard. Like, whatever you think you're doing, you're not doing enough. I'm going to tell you that right now. Clark revealed that to me when he did what he did. It's not like I've never seen anybody write 100 grand before. 100 grand on simplified issue final expense is a task, because we all know that's, what, $1,000 per app. That's working. But then I started talking to him and can find out it's really not. It's really not. We have, and this is what I believe, and then I'm going to get into what I'm going to talk about today. I believe telesales has gone through this slow morph, and it's because there weren't a whole lot of people doing it before COVID. It was kind of that thing that was out there that everybody was doing. And so when those of us who were in the field came into telesales, all the numbers kind of shifted over. And we thought back then, a $10,000 week was a great week in the field. And so we just transfer that over to telesales. Oh, it's got to be harder. It's, you can't talk and people don't pick up the phone and you can't knock on their door. And I agree with all those things. And then as it grew and went and gone, I think we've just, we've looked and said, hey, somebody who's a $40,000 or $50,000 a month, that's a deal. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. And again, Clark is my proof that if you work, I don't think we should be looking at $100,000 months as rare. I set my goal, just for what it's worth, for what everybody wants to know. I actually went to work and started doing stuff. The week of Christmas, I wrote about 12,500. I did an app on Christmas Eve day, and I did an app on Christmas Day. I'm not frozen. I want that to settle in right real quick and go, oh, this guy doesn't love his family. This guy doesn't love his Lord. This guy doesn't love all these other things. And I'll fight you on that right now. I don't want to get into an argument with anybody. I wear these shirts for a reason. It's the brand that I'm putting out there. But I travel all the time with my family, so I love my family. I was in the ministry at one point. I was a youth pastor at one point in time. I dedicated my church. We were there all the time and everything else. There is nothing more important than Jesus, period, in my life. At the same time, I'm not worshiping a day. Paul said some people esteem one day over another, and that's the way it's going to be. But what I do take seriously is what we do. We can do what we can in this business. I don't take myself seriously, but I take what I do very seriously, because I have done this long enough. I am old enough to know the feeling of handing a check to a client on a death claim. I know. I just seriously dated myself, because half of you don't even know what a check is. So I get it. These little paper things we used to have to collect when we actually did business, then we would take them to our clients when the death benefit came out. So that changes you. Even in this day and age, I've done a few now that are, in the 21st century, it still has that same effect. I don't see the face, I don't see the tears, I don't see all that stuff. I can hear it on the other end. Last year I had one on Easter. That is geesh. And the girl was apologizing, calling me on Easter Sunday at 4 a.m. and everything. But you've got to take what we do seriously. What? Not me. I'm not serious at all. So I want to go through a couple quick things here, and I'm the guy. This is what I do. The very first time I spoke on stage for Lasting Work, when it wasn't Lasting Work, I would date myself there too. I sat next to a gentleman, Roman Caval. If you look him up, you can follow him online. He does 500,000 a year on a constant basis. He and I were talking about why it's hard for him to recruit, and he's from the Ukraine. He's not from the Ukraine. He was born here. Don't bring that up. He's very, very American and wants to let you know he's American. But his parents came here. And that's who he hangs around with. And I said, you've got that Eastern European mindset. That's why it doesn't appeal, because he gets up, he lives in Oregon. He lives, so he's on the West Coast. So his day, he starts dialing at 7 a.m. and he dials till 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and most of the time, half the day on Saturday. At 7 p.m., he starts doing all of his, work, his extra stuff that you have to do, and, all the admin stuff. So it may be 9, 10 o'clock before he goes to bed. Now, because he lives on the West Coast, his weekend jaunts are to Hawaii, and he goes over to, the Philippines, and goes, he and his wife travel a lot as well, and they go to the, really cool places. But I told him, I said, nobody's going to want to buy into that. Nobody wants to buy into 12-hour days, 5-6 days a week. I sat next to him and said, I'm the guy. I can teach you this. You can do 250, working about 25 hours a week. That I can train on all day long. So I'm not the guy, before we go any further, I am not the guy that's going to sit here and tell you how hard this is. And I would say to you point blank, if you think this is hard, you're doing it wrong. If you think this is hard, you are doing it wrong. It should not be hard. It should not be a grind. It should not be anything else. Now, I'm going to tell you, I don't like dialing just like the rest of everybody else. Okay. I'm not trying to sit here and say that sitting here going, hitting a button and letting it dial through is fun. But my dad was in construction, and I grew up in Iowa on the farm. That's hard work. You don't get away with. I had calluses that I could pick off and put. I could put a nail through the callus when I was 14 because of I understood hard work. That's what I did. My dad, to his dying day, said I didn't have a real job because all I did was talk. So that's how I grew up. Once I figured out this could make money, I'm out. I'm like, I don't have to do this. I mean, my hands right now are pathetic. I don't even claim to even know construction. So I want to do something really quickly. If you're going to tailor this, it's going to be called the art of inversion. It's a way of operating, it's a way of thinking, doing things, goal setting specifically, in order for you to look at things on the opposite way of what you normally do. I am not going to teach you anything ever that is contrary to Mike and Jalen. Because people look at my script and they look at Jalen's, they're like, oh, I don't know that. And Jalen and I've had this from day one. I stepped into this thing. There's always somebody going, hey, Jalen, Tony's teaching me. Like, yes, he's teaching them that. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's not that hard. Principles are what the problem is here. So if we're going to do inversion, it would look like this. You say, I'm setting my goal for 5,000. Okay, so today's Tuesday. It's only an app a day. I've got 5,000, for going forward. How hard is that? You start looking at if you've written 5,000 in AP on Saturday, how many apps do you have? There's no right or wrong answer. It's you. So we got low of 4 and a high of 7. Fair enough. I'll say that. All right. Next question. How many presentations did you have to do to get 4 or 5 apps? But most of us are okay with 1 out of 3, 1 out of 4. So if I have to have 5, then I've done 15 to 20 presentations. Guys, that to me, that's insane. That's what's painful, is that 75% of the time you didn't accomplish the goal. So we're going to get to that, but let's just set this up here. So what we do for inverting something is we look the other way and say, okay, in order for me to have those 15, let's look at the backside of it. If I get to Saturday and I've only got 2,200, not 5. I hit Saturday night for me, it would be midnight because I can work all the way to midnight calling the West Coast. So I get to Saturday night, did not hit my goal, and I've got 2,200 in AP. What things would I have done to accomplish a goal of hitting 2,200? What did I do to accomplish that? Because we're looking at the opposite of accomplishing a goal. I'm saying you didn't accomplish the goal. So what did you do? Like, I'll give you an idea. Probably more days than not, you quit before the daily metric was hit. You probably watched a couple shows that you like to watch at nighttime, probably scrolled social media more than you should, which is 0, worked half days. So this is how inversion works. Those are the things to accomplish 2,200. I want 5. So anytime I'm doing these things, I stop it. Christianity, we have a word called repentance. It means turn around, turn away. So it's the exact opposite of. So if I need to scroll for at least an hour a day to make sure I only do 2,200 this week, every time you catch yourself scrolling, you stop it and you go back to work. Every time I'm sitting at 8 o'clock at night and going, I don't feel like doing this anymore, but I don't have an app, I'm going to keep dialing because I know if I do the things that are written down, you've got to write this stuff down. And anytime you see yourself doing anything that's on that list, you stop and do the opposite. It's literally that simple. Invert. It's a completely different way. I know this sounds like too simple right now. We're going to get to it here in a second because you're going to say, well, okay, what does that have to do with anything? Well, funny you should ask, because that's the whole point. If you invert what you're trying to do on a daily basis, you have a list of things that you need to avoid consistently. Instead of trying to hit the goal, you're going to hit the goal naturally because you're going to avoid the stuff that stops you from hitting it. That's kind of the concept right here. So when you get your scripting, your script is like GPS. It kind of tells you how, where to go. You have direction. Here's what and I have my own script, and Jalen will tell you, you got to say, he's got certain things he wants you to say. I've got certain things I want you to say when you're talking to people. But overall, it's just the directions. But the scripting is designed for when you don't know what you're doing. You have directions, but you don't know the way. You don't know the roads and how they work. And if I can give you directions to take my kids to school, but you don't know the roads, even though you know exactly, it says drive this way and then turn left and turn this way and turn right. And that's what a script does. But you don't know that if you ask this question, there's 14 variations of an answer that could come. And all you're worried about is reading the next thing that's on the page or saying the next thing that you're supposed to say. That's why your presentation doesn't work. It's because it's a pitch and not a conversation. Your presentation doesn't work because it's a pitch, and people feel that all the time. And how do I know that that's the case? Because all of us, including myself, the reason we know that doesn't work is because all of us do classes or sessions on objections. Now, somebody would look real quick or just give me, what's the definition of an objection? Opposition. Okay, so do you want opposition at the end of your presentation? Objections come at the end based on what you said. Just process this for a second. Somebody is sitting, minding their own business, and they're like, something happens. We don't know what the trigger is, but something happens. And they say, you know what, I'm thinking I probably should start looking at insurance. Now, we can get into that whole mindset of why you're 67 and just now getting around, or you're 77 and just now getting around to doing insurance. That's a whole nother training. But they've thought it through. And then all of a sudden, something pops up on Facebook while they're doing their death scroll for the day, catches their attention. They read it, click on it, go through the process of making themselves into a lead. So they're taking the initiative to move forward and saying, yeah, this is probably something I need to look into. They get a phone call and they answer. How big of a deal is that? How big of a deal is the fact that you call and they answer the phone? Okay. You're 90% there. They answer the phone, and a professional insurance person then talks to them for the next 45 minutes to an hour. And at the end of all of that, this person who was interested in doing this, after an hour of listening to you, says an objection. I'm going to think about it. I got to talk about it. I can't afford it. I can't, whatever it is that you get. And I'm not saying this to be mean. Should we all not put on the brakes right now and go, how did that happen? How did I take somebody who was interested and change them into somebody who's not? Because the only factor that changed was you. That was new information. You have, again, biblical principle. You got the power of life and death. Choose life. Speak to these people. They don't want to be pitched at and talked at. It's a conversation. It's a collaboration. You have pushed them away from what they actually wanted. Now, probably, if I had to guess, you've overwhelmed them with logic instead of massaging emotion within them. You've probably pushed a ton of facts on them and reason. So it makes sense to them instead of extracting feelings. You talked about what the product does, not the problem it solves. Think about insurance from anybody. And guys, for those of us in final expense, it ain't that deep. How much education do they need on the product? Mary, you're going to pay a monthly amount to this company. When you die, this company will pay your loved ones. Somebody tell me how much more they need to know than that. Because I'm all ears. If you've got a deeper presentation than that, I need to know. I'm not being funny. I know this. You're like, Tony, come on, seriously? Yes, seriously. Especially in final expense, we're not dealing with ultra sophisticated people and ultra sophisticated buyers. They just want to know that when they die, their kids don't have to take the bill, or when they die, their grandkids don't have to take the bill, or when they die, their niece and nephew doesn't have to take the bill. That's it. It's real deep. Your discovery, which I don't even call it in mine, is not for you to extract all this reasoning. People don't buy because of reason. They buy because of emotion. That's it. Everything you do is emotionally based. Now, we'll back it up with logic a little bit, yes, but it is emotionally based. How many on you right now, we just came out of Christmas, how many of you got something you don't want? How many gave you a gift that you're like, okay, that was all right? Or went out and bought something, and now you're like, I don't know if I really needed that. We buy on emotion every single time. Now, I'm not saying you can overhype. That's good. And that's a different training because you can't overhype them with emotion and then they come down, and then that's when you get cancellations as well when people second guess stuff. But if they have a conversation about what's important to them with you, not only do you get the sale, you get higher volume and it sticks every time. I get to say that with authority because I've done it longer than some of you have been alive. So that's what it's designed for. You cannot overwhelm them with facts. People do not buy. And what happens typically if somebody is doing training, or if you're doing training with somebody, you say, if somebody puts up objection A, doesn't matter what the objection is, what type of response is taught? Not we, not you. What type of response is taught as for whatever? Let's just say they say I can't afford it. What is typically the response that comes back? The high producers will. The person who doesn't understand sales, what do they say? What types of things come out of their mouth? Logical statements. There's a time to make statements because you can do that if you lead. Y'all know I follow Chris Voss and the whole no momentum and doing those type of things. And there's parts where you make statements in order to be corrective, or you ask a question that you know is wrong. But my new thing right now is I confirm their birth date. That's one of the things we do on the opening. And I'm off on our system started doing it. And then even when we fix it, I still do it. I always quote their birth date off by 1 day because people love to correct you. You know how hard it is to hang up on somebody that you're correcting? Guess what? My contact ratio is through the roof because they have to correct me. They have to stay on the phone to correct me. And again, a lot of you, when you get a response that is a no, you instantly come back with logic. So, I don't think I can afford that. Oh, okay. Well, let's drop the price. Let's drop the price. You didn't even ask a question of any kind, shape, or form. First of all, you should never get that. You get that on a consistent basis. When you get to the end, you are not doing your job because the value of what they're getting. How in the world can anybody argue with the fact that you're gonna pay a company $85 a month for the rest of your life, and they're gonna pay out $10,000 to your loved ones? How is that a bad deal? So logically, they aren't connected, and you trying to jam more logic down their throat isn't going to work either. The question is, what stops you from having 100% close rate? What stops you that when you give, for my definition of you give numbers, you make a presentation and then you give them your 3 choices or however you do your close. And at that point, they go sideways. What stops you from having 100% of the time that when you give them numbers, they pick a number? So for the record, since the first of the year, I've got about $25,320.89 as my submit as of today. Now I'm saying that to brag. I'm saying that because I don't put up numbers. As of late, because of my conversation with Clark, and this is why you need to surround yourself with people that are doing significantly more than you so that it embarrasses you to even have a conversation. I mean, I begged Clark to have a conversation with him because I knew it was at that point, I'm taking time away from somebody who can write 100 grand when they feel like it. Now we'll see what it takes for him to do it again when he feels like it, because he's already been proven it can be done. Not a fluke. It's not like he was writing 10,000 a month and all he wrote, it'd be a fluke if he was writing 10,000 a month and then went to 100, be like, what'd you do? You fell into an IUL or a couple of annuities or something like that. But he wrote a good deal of business. So it's not a fluke. It is an application. That's the difference. So when we do our presentation, we're going to look at the end and say, I'm going to get to the end of my presentation. I'll just pick the easy one. And they say, sounds good. I'm going to think about it a couple days and get back to you. Now, right, for those of you that can write, you need to write down what happened. What did you specifically say that made them say to you, I need to think about it? What part of the presentation did you speak too fast or whatever the case is? What did you say? We're going to do what you didn't say first, but start with how did it come to be that after somebody who was interested spent 45 minutes with you, that the first thing out of their mouth is, I got to think about it? What occurred? If somebody said at the end, I need to think about it, what did you say to them to make that happen? Let's connect A and B together for people that don't understand that.
The overall answer is it's likely I might have even confused them. Like,
I'll take that one. Run with that.
Yeah. They felt like this made sense to them, and somewhere in the process, what I did made them feel more confused or muddied about what this does.
Give me a specific line that you probably said.
A specific line might have been like in explaining how it works, like how the product might work.
Okay.
They're like, well, that all makes sense, but I need to probably talk to my son to make sure it's the right kind of plan, because you said it's like whole life, so then it pays him, and but maybe there's other options. We talked about other things, and I'm trying to think of like a specific. There's all different kinds of reasons they might say want to think about it, but if I confuse them,
you're 100% right. That's what I'm saying. Was we've got to pick one so everybody's not all over the place. I'm just saying this is one of the examples. But he's 100% correct. We can go through this for the next hour of because Jack's right. There's 100 different reasons that they may say, I got to think about it. But what we do know is it's our fault. So to Jack's point, he said, well, if they have to say that at the end, I confused them when we were talking about the product. And I'll agree with that. That's easy. One of 100, that would definitely be one of the ones that we talk about. Now, am I saying, do you not hear what I'm not saying? Am I saying don't explain the product to them? No, it's part of the presentation. It's part of my presentation of, hey, has anybody ever taken the time? This is our lead in. Anybody ever taken the time to explain the important differences between whole life and term? And whether they say yes or no, we're still going to say, that's great. We find about 85% of our clients either have the wrong type or are way overpaying for what they have. Here's why. And then I can go into a boom, 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 and I go through it very quickly. And here's how I know I'm doing the right job. As of late, I hear, wow, nobody's ever explained it like that. You made that so simple. And it literally takes me 3.5 minutes. I got a video on my YouTube if you want to see it. Matter of fact, it's because Emma asked me. Ching, ching. Emma asked, which she does a lot, which is why she writes. Just saying. And I can explain it. I go into a lot more detail, but I can explain it in a pitch in like 30 seconds. There's 3 types: if, how, and when. I don't even use vernacular that's insurance. Boom, boom, boom. This is what it works. And then when we're done, of those 3, which ones do you already have in place and which one makes the most sense for your final expenses? They have to come to the conclusion. This is them with the problem. Tony's got the thing. I'm not going to convince them to get insurance. I can. I'm good at sales. I've been doing it a long time. I just don't think we have to sell over the phone. Your job is to find the people, not talk them into it. You talk them into it, you get chargebacks. When they talk themselves into it, it's fine. You just need to, all you're doing is taking a little ember and turning it into a fire. That's it. They just need to see how serious things are. Because they're 77 and don't have insurance. The number one problem is they think they're going to live forever. Oh, I can do it tomorrow. I can do it tomorrow. Our people are procrastinators. That's who we talk to. That's why your appointments don't show. That's why your callbacks don't work. Ever. I'm really good at what I do. if I was just talking to Corey about this, about our numbers, I said for the appointments that set through the bot and that answer the phone, I have 100% close ratio. Unfortunately, only about 20% of the people keep the appointment. so, so you can't make a living that way. If I get 5 appointments a day, I'm going to get 1 to pick up the phone, which is still cool. You get 1 a day, but if you're trying to write 100 grand, I got to have all of them pick up the phone, or I go, it doesn't work. Our people are not that people. So those of you who believe you can be nice and set appointments and call them back and do all this stuff, you're 190% wrong. You will fail out of the business completely. You'll see the people who have been doing this longer than 1 month will go 100%. So what does that? So we get to the end, and there is, I want to think about it. What did we say to cause that? A confused mind cannot make decisions. And you confuse people by overwhelming them with information. I will tell you, if you are consistently getting, I need to think about it, you're talking way too much about stuff they don't care about. That's just a tidbit right there. If they say, let's go into what's another objection that would come up at the end. You get all the way to the end, you show them the things. What else could they say? This is where you put stuff out that you're getting so that the whole group we can look into it and say, okay, how's that going to work? Because I'm going to give you a new way of looking at it. Now, I will tell you anything that they say, and this happens rarely, but anything they say, when I give them 3 options and they say anything besides pick one of the options, my response instantly is, oh, I'm sorry, Emma, I gave you the impression that you were approved. We're not even close to that. The only thing that's changed from an hour ago to now, or 45 minutes ago to now, is that you have a number. That's why I said to pick the number that is the most affordable. We still have to jump through all the hoops, make sure the insurance company accepts you and does all those things. So which of these checks, and I go right back into the close. Now that happens 10% of the time, maybe 8. I mean, it's a very, very, very low number with me.
Tony, can I ask a question?
Sure.
How do you go? Because I do the same thing, but I'm obviously trying to avoid we're just submitting close, because that's not really a close, right? How do you, well, you know what I'm saying? Like it is a close, but it's a high percentage of that is going to be a chargeback. How do you then re-anchor them to feel like they are closed? Does that make sense? Like if you're pivoting there and going, I must have, like what you just said, because I'll hit the same thing, but I'm really trying to focus on my placement and persistency this year.
Sure.
That's going to be king this year. How do you
every top producer does
go ahead and re-anchor? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm going to give you the smart alecky answer first.
Please. Yeah.
It is, don't let that happen.
Don't let the first thing happen yeah. Gotcha.
That the first domino sets everything in motion. And this is, you walked right into exactly what I was going through. This is what we planned for. So what happens is, this is Clark's question. I get to the end and we're kind of like loosey-goosey on this thing. They don't really feel good. So what did I leave out, or what did I do to cause that? As long as you are taking personal responsibility for what happens at the end and not blaming it on the client, you can fix everything. I mean, I've listened to it come out of his mouth. So, and as you do this longer, you figure out, how did it go from somebody who filled out a form to, no, I'm not going to do it. And the only thing that changed is they got exposed to me. So it's clearly something I said. So my scripting is designed to overcome every single objection prior to the close. And if you've done this longer than a month, actually, well, I shouldn't say that. You got to get, there's 3 sets of 100. You got to get through your first 100 phone calls first, just so you learn what 100 phone calls feels like, and dialing and getting through them. And you got to get through them as fast as possible. Then you got to get through your first 100 presentations as quickly as possible, so you can learn how things are said, the dynamics, the person we're talking to, all the good stuff. And then you worry about your first 100 closes. Those are the stair steps that you're going through, and each one of those requires a different learning type for what you're doing. Obviously, you're not learning a whole lot of anything when you first 100 dials. That's just about speed and not goofing around and learning how to dial and go through it. So when I'm looking at the end, again, all I did is invert. Here's what happens at the end. Somebody's going to say to me, I need to think about it. Where back 45 minutes earlier, I got from them answering the phone to 45, I got 45 minutes in there, 35-ish. I guess I shouldn't say it'd be hard on numbers, but between 35 and 40 minutes, I've got 35 or 45 minutes to make sure that doesn't occur. So what types of things would I need to, and I'll just put this out here for everybody, what types of things would need to come out of my mouth to make sure they don't say I need to think about it? Here's your clue. My belief system is if I bring up the objection first, I own it. You can't then take it back from me. If you sat through, I'll give you an example. If you sat through one of my trainings, it's the, you pick up the phone, hey, John, whatever your entry is, and they're like, oh, yeah, hey, Tony, it's not a really good time for me right now. Can you call me back? Yeah, my response, and you've all heard me say this, if you've heard me say this on training, put your hand up after I'm done. Yeah, John, it's not a really good time for me either. I just caught you in between appointments. You've been extraordinarily difficult to get in touch with. So the reason I'm talking, and I go right back into my pitch, they are on my time, not the other way around. You all believe if you're a professional, nice person and go, oh, when's a better time to get back with you? You'll never talk to them again, statistically. So what do I have to lose? Oh, they're going to think you're a jerk. So hang up. I mark it off on the list and they go to the bottom of the list and they'll get called in a month anyway. But I will get more sales than you because I kept that guy on the phone every time. So I'm looking at what's going to happen and then saying, I have time prior to that to invert that into, I don't need to think about it. I need to do this now. So what types of things have to come out of my mouth to get them to say, I want to think about it? You all can do this as a thing, because I'm running out of time here. You all can do that as an exercise and sit down and go, what would I have said? Don't worry about what you didn't say yet, because you can have two sides of the you'll have a column, obviously, when you do the sheet. What did I say that made them say at the end of the presentation, I need to think about it? What did I say? And you just start making a list and you keep that in front of you. And anytime you start going into any of those topics or any of those phrases, you don't say that stuff.